It was just another ordinary day at school, probably during the 10th grade. Right after the third class, during lunch break, my friends and I were having fun as usual. We usually spent 5 minutes eating and the rest of the 20 minutes playing around. However, in the middle of lunch, the PA system issued an emergency lockdown announcement, which left us somewhat apprehensive. Mr. Michael seemed visibly disturbed while announcing the lockdown. While some friends thought it was just a drill, something in me sensed otherwise. After the blackout at school, some friends chose to leave the cafeteria through a side entrance that led to the upper floor. Without fully understanding the reason, I followed them. As we made our way through the dark corridors, visibility was minimal, except for the faint sunlight streaming through the windows. Suddenly, we heard 3 consecutive gunshots, followed by screams, which sent us into a panic. We ran outside as fast as we could, relieved to be near the main entrance. However, aware of our vulnerability outside, we decided to hide behind the school, heading towards the woods. Being careful not to be seen while crossing the football field, when we arrived, we heard police sirens approaching. Realizing we were missing but not yet being sought after, we decided to remain hidden until the police found us during the search. Eventually, we were discovered and detained until the real suspect, a student from another school, was captured. Thankfully, no one was injured, but the motive behind the attempted massacre remained unknown. It was a lesson learned about the consequences of acting impulsively. After explaining the situation to the police, it became clear that the real suspect and I looked physically similar, but had no connection to the incident. The police quickly ruled out any involvement on our part. It was a moment of relief mixed with a lesson learned. We realized how risky it was to act impulsively, putting ourselves in unnecessary danger. We promised ourselves to think twice before acting in emergency situations. After all, even though everything ended without serious injuries, it could have been much worse. This happened during my 10th grade. I attended a high school that I would describe as quite average. For the most part, nothing very interesting or exciting happened on a daily basis. During that time, I used the school bus to go to and from school every day, as my house was about 10 minutes away. On a spring day, during my third period writing class, which I always found boring, I decided to ask permission to go to the bathroom. My teacher agreed, and I left the classroom. I walked through the empty corridor towards the bathrooms, which were not far away, just at the end of the corridor, around a corner. While I was inside, I heard the door open. No one entered, but I heard someone ask, "Is anyone here?" I was confused by the question, since it was a bathroom with several stalls. I didn't respond, and a few seconds later the door closed. Whoever it was had left. It seemed likely that it was probably a teacher. After finishing up, while washing my hands at the sink, I heard the school intercom beep, followed by an announcement stating that the school was on lockdown. I remember clearly them saying it wasn't a drill. I felt a bit nervous hearing that. Maybe that's why someone had asked if anyone was in the bathroom. I wasn't sure what to do, whether to stay in the bathroom or go back to the classroom. I decided to return to the classroom. My teacher was probably wondering where I was. I left the bathroom, avoiding being seen by any teacher, afraid of getting into trouble. Upon entering the corridor, I noticed it was completely empty and very quiet. I walked down the hallway to return to my classroom, but I heard footsteps approaching as I got closer. I didn't know who it could be, probably a teacher. I decided to retreat and hope they didn't see me, but the footsteps kept getting closer. Quickly, I turned back down the hallway and took a different direction. As soon as I turned the corner, I heard the footsteps speed up. I was sure they were following me. Although they didn't say anything, I started walking even faster, and the footsteps matched my pace. I began to suspect that maybe it wasn't a teacher, but someone who shouldn't be in the building. As I turned another corner, I desperately looked for a place to hide. That's when I spotted a slightly open door. I quickly entered as the footsteps approached. I closed the door and at first couldn't see anything because of the darkness, but I realized I was in some kind of closet, filled with extra desks and boxes. I stayed completely silent, even holding my breath. I could still hear the footsteps, which stopped right in front of the closet where I was, but then continued to move away. As the footsteps faded, I began to feel more relieved and safe to come out. I waited a little longer to be sure. Suddenly, I heard a noise coming from behind me, inside the closet. I turned just in time to see a man there, moving around one of the boxes. I couldn't distinguish details because of the darkness, just that it was a man. I ran towards the door as fast as I could. Fortunately, it was only a few steps away. I opened the door and ran out into the hallway in the direction where the footsteps had come from. In a matter of minutes, I spotted a man, who turned around looking confused. He was one of our teachers, whom I immediately recognized. I informed him about the man hiding in the closet. Both of us headed to the school's administrative area, where the police had just arrived. In less than 20 minutes, the man was found and detained. He shouldn't have been in the school, and that was the reason for the lockdown. The footsteps I heard were indeed from a teacher. I can't believe I hid in the same closet as the intruder. Looking back, I should have returned directly to my classroom. On my last day of high school in 2005, I was about to close this crucial phase of my life. I felt a mix of excitement and relief, but also a tinge of melancholy, knowing I was leaving behind friends and would have to face new challenges in college. I faced this transition with optimism. After all, changes are inevitable. That day, I was in a bad mood due to family issues at home. During biology class, taught by Mr. Johnson, a teacher known for his inappropriate behavior, I chose to skip. This teacher already had a history of aggressive behavior, and even threats to students. I preferred to take refuge in the library, pretending to be focused on schoolwork, while actually spending time playing on my cell phone. Suddenly, an announcement over the school's PA system announced a lockdown. At first, I thought it was just another drill, but soon realized something was wrong when I heard screams echoing through the halls. I panicked and hid under the library tables, hoping it would all pass soon. However, the screams persisted, and the silence was only broken by the sound of hurried footsteps. When the library door opened, my fear only grew. An unknown figure entered, and I remained hidden, watching as the person searched the library with a flashlight. Finally, the figure reached my hiding spot, and I found myself forced to reveal my presence. To my surprise, it was Tyler, a former high school friend I had lost touch with. He was visibly disturbed and armed to the teeth, but I managed to calm him down and persuade him to surrender. I begged him to drop the weapon, and he began to cry before collapsing to the floor. I kicked the rifle away and comforted him, assuring him that everything would be okay. I explained to him that it was crucial for us to do the right thing, and that he needed to surrender if he truly wanted a chance to improve. Surprisingly, he listened to me, and I accompanied him to the office, where we found the principal. The principal, visibly shaken by everything that had happened, then escorted us to the police. As a witness, I reported everything I knew, and Tyler cooperated fully. I am relieved that Tyler sought me out instead of someone else. In his eyes, I was one of the only friends. If he had found someone else, I fear the consequences would have been terrible. As much as I don't agree with Tyler's actions, I recognize that he was a boy who had been bullied and tormented throughout his life, in addition to facing a terrible home situation, along with various mental health issues. I'm sure that day would have been a true massacre. When I was in the last year of high school, about 8 years ago, I vividly remember needing to make a desperate dash to the bathroom due to terrible stomach discomfort, likely caused by some sort of gastrointestinal issue. As I rushed down the hallway toward the restroom, I heard whistling coming from there. As I got closer, I realized the whistling was coming from inside the bathroom. Though it was just a mild inconvenience, as I urgently needed the restroom, it was uncomfortable sharing the space with someone, considering my situation. After uncomfortably relieving myself, I noticed the man who was in the restroom, barely visible, had stayed there the whole time. While I was in the bathroom, he continued whistling and humming, which, though very odd, was the reality of the situation. Upon exiting the restroom, I realized he was standing so close I could feel his breath on my neck, which made me extremely uncomfortable. He had a cold expression, but then gave me a disturbing smile. Confused and disturbed, I reported the situation to a friend, who also had a similar experience with the same janitor. Later, when we left school with friends, we encountered the same man. Initially, we didn't recognize him, but soon realized he was the same janitor. We were scared and confused, but kept walking until he approached us, strangely inviting us to hang out. We ignored him and tried to quicken our pace, but he started running towards us, revealing a knife. We screamed for help and ran away, losing sight of him after a few minutes. The next day, we found out he wasn't the school janitor, but a dangerous stranger who possibly suffered from mental problems. We reported the incident to the police and the principal, concerned about what could have happened if we hadn't escaped. Shortly after, we found out the school was unaware of the man's identity and confirmed he was not part of the staff. I personally feared he might have tried to harm us, or even worse. It's scary to think that some people are so mentally disturbed as to commit such threatening acts. He might possibly be a deranged psychopath, willing to harm anyone.